My son Liam stood before me, his eyes burning with greed as he demanded that I give him my inheritance, my life, my work. I refused, thinking it was over. But a week later he invited me to a family meeting for reconciliation. I arrived, and there were lawyers waiting with a ready-made will. They put the papers in front of me, but I just smiled. "It's funny," I said, "I brought a guest too." Their faces turned pale as the door opened. This betrayal was their biggest mistake. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The dining room smelled of cold coffee and rain-soaked wood. Family photos lined the walls, their frames glinting under the chandelier's dim glow. My son Liam paced like a caged animal, his loafers clicking against the hardwood. His wife, Emma, sat across from me, her manicured nails tapping the table, each click a needle in my spine. The old clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have, slicing through the silence between Liam's shouts. "You're sitting on my future, Dad." Liam's voice cracked, his face red. "You think you can just hold on to everything forever?" I gripped the edge of my glass, the whiskey inside untouched. My pulse hammered, but I kept my voice low. "This is my home, Liam. My rules." Emma leaned forward, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's be reasonable, James. You're not eternal." She slid a stack of papers across the table, an old will, its edges worn. Her nails flashed under the light, sharp as her words. "You're holding them back. Their dreams. Their life. Their life." As if my decades of grinding, building a network of car dealerships from nothing, meant less than their whims. I stared at the papers but didn't touch them. Liam stopped pacing, his eyes burning with something uglier than anger. "Greed, maybe. Or desperation. You always made me live in your shadow," he spat. "Those loans you gave me. Chump change compared to what you're hoarding. Loans." The word stung. I'd paid for his failed startups, his cars, his vacations, thinking it was love. My mistake. The clock ticked again, relentless. A photo of my late wife, Margaret, watched from the wall, her smile frozen in time. I wondered what she'd say now. "Enough." My voice cut through the room, sharper than I meant. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "Get out. Both of you." Liam froze, his mouth half open. Emma's smile vanished, her eyes narrowing. She grabbed the papers, clutching them like a weapon, and stood. "This isn't over, James," she said, her voice ice. Liam stormed toward the door, his shoulder brushing a photo frame. It tilted but didn't fall. The front door slammed, the sound echoing like a gunshot. I sank back into my chair, the room too quiet now. Rain tapped the windows, a steady drum. The will sat on the table, its presence mocking me. I reached for it, my fingers brushing the paper, but stopped. My chest tightened, a mix of shock and something hotter, anger, maybe. Or resolve. "You'll regret this," I whispered, not sure who I was talking to. The clock ticked on, indifferent. I stood, my legs heavier than they should have been, and walked toward my study. The key to my desk drawer was cold in my pocket. Whatever was coming, I'd be ready. The study smelled of leather and old books, a sanctuary from the storm outside. Rain lashed the windows, blurring the world beyond. I sat at my desk, the lamp casting a weak circle of light over a pile of letters and photos. The clock on the shelf ticked, its rhythm pulling me back to moments I'd rather forget. My fingers trembled as I opened a drawer, revealing a stack of papers tied with a faded ribbon. Margaret's letters. Her handwriting, all loops and grace, stared up at me. I untied the ribbon, my throat tight. One letter, dated years ago, caught my eye. "You're always so strong, James," she'd written. "But don't forget to live for yourself." I clenched the paper, guilt twisting in my chest. I'd lived for her, for Liam, for everyone but me. Now look where it got me. My mind drifted to Liam's first car, a sleek convertible I'd bought when he dropped out of college. He'd grinned then. Called me his hero. I'd beamed, thinking it was enough. Later, I'd funded his startups, each one crashing harder than the last. I'd told myself it was fine, that he'd find his way. Margaret had warned me, her voice soft in the hospital bed. He needs to stand on his own, James. I hadn't listened. Not then. The clock ticked louder, grounding me. I set the letter down and dug deeper into the drawer. A contract surfaced, its edges yellowed. A loan I'd given Liam 3 years ago, 6 figures, no repayment. My jaw tightened. He'd called it an investment, but it was a lifeline he'd squandered. The numbers stared back, a map of my blindness. I leaned back, the chair creaking. The study felt smaller now, the walls closing in. A photo of Margaret sat on the desk, her eyes kind but piercing. I touched the frame, my fingers lingering. She died holding my hand, her breath shallow, her last words about protecting our family. I'd failed her there, too. Enough. I grabbed my phone and dialed Ron, an old friend who'd seen me through worse. It rang twice before he answered, his voice warm but cautious. James? You okay? I need your take on something, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's serious. Name the time and place. No hesitation. That was Ron. Tomorrow. That steakhouse downtown. Noon. I'll be there. He paused. You sure you're all right? I didn't answer, just ended the call. The letter from Margaret lay open, her words a quiet rebuke. I folded it carefully and slipped it into my pocket. The rain hadn't let up, and neither would I. I stood, my shadow long against the bookshelves, and left the study. By the time I reached the front door, my coat was on, the letter a weight against my chest. The car engine roared to life, and I drove into the storm, the road ahead as unclear as my next move. Rain pounded the streets of downtown Chicago, turning the sidewalks into rivers. I parked outside the steakhouse, the neon sign flickering through the downpour. My fingers brushed the letter in my pocket, Margaret's words, a tether to my resolve. The restaurant's door creaked as I stepped inside, the smell of grilled meat and coffee hitting me. Ron sat at a corner table, his gray hair catching the light. He waved me over, his smile fading when he saw my face. Rough night, he asked, pushing a mug of coffee toward me. Rough life. I sat, my coat dripping onto the floor. The letter pressed against my ribs, a quiet reminder. Liam and Emma came by yesterday. They want everything. Now. Ron's eyes narrowed. They've got nerve. What did you do? Told them to get out. I sipped the coffee, bitter and hot. But they're not done. I can feel it. The restaurant hummed, clinking plates, low voices, the hiss of rain outside. I glanced around, my neck prickling. A man in a dark coat sat near the bar, his cap low, his eyes flicking toward us before darting away. I shook it off, focusing on Ron. He leaned forward, his voice low. They might try to contest the will, he said. Liam's impulsive, but Emma? She's sharp. Dangerous. I nodded, my jaw tight. I know. That's why I need to move fast. Protect the assets first, Ron said. Get a lawyer. A good one. Someone who'll bury them in paperwork. I pulled out a notebook, jotting down his words, check will. Lock down accounts. My pen moved fast, each stroke a step toward control. The door creaked again, another customer stepping in, rain pooling at their feet. My eyes flicked to the man in the cap. He hadn't touched his drink. You're not just fighting for money, Ron said, his voice softer now. They underestimated you, Jim. Prove them wrong. I met his gaze, a spark catching in my chest. I will. I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer's office, keeping my voice low. It's James Crawford. I need an appointment. Tomorrow, if you can. The receptionist promised to call back. I hung up, my pulse steady for the first time in days. Ron clapped my shoulder. That's the James the First no. I managed a half smile, but my eyes drifted to the bar. The man in the cap was gone, his glass empty. A chill ran through me. I stood, tossing cash on the table. I'll call you soon, I told Ron, already moving toward the door. Outside, the rain was merciless, soaking my coat. I scanned the street, my breath catching. A shadow moved in the alley across the road, too quick to place. My car keys bit into my palm as I unlocked the door and slid inside. You don't know who you're dealing with, I muttered, the words lost in the roar of the engine. The road stretched ahead, slick and dark, but I was ready for whatever came next. The rain hadn't stopped, a gray curtain over Chicago's skyline as I pulled up to the detective's office. The building was a squat brick relic, its windows streaked with grime. I clutched a folder of documents, old contracts, loan agreements, my knuckles white. The shadow from the alley yesterday still lingered in my mind, a nagging itch I couldn't scratch. I pushed through the door, the bell jangling like a warning. Inside, the air smelled of stale cigarettes and damp paper. Frank, the private detective, sat behind a cluttered desk, his tie loose, a coffee mug balanced on a stack of files. He looked up, his eyes sharp despite the bags beneath them. Crawford. You're early. Couldn't sleep, I said, dropping into a creaky chair. The folder hit the desk with a thud. What have you got? Frank slid a manila envelope toward me, its edges taped shut. Your son's in deep. 50 grand in debt, cars, credit cards, a bad bet on some tech startup. Emma's cleaner, but not by much. He leaned back, smirking. She's obsessed with looking like old money. Spends a fortune to keep up. I tore open the envelope, my pulse quickening. Bank statements, receipts, a photo of Liam posing with a Rolex he couldn't afford. Then, a photocopied letter in Emma's tight script, tucked into Liam's old belongings. James clings to his money like a dying man to air. He's not eternal. We'll take what's ours. My stomach churned, but a cold smile tugged at my lips. She wrote this? Found it in a box Liam dumped at a storage unit, Frank said. Sloppy. Both of them. I traced the words, Emma's venom seeping through the page. The office's fluorescent light buzzed, casting shadows over the desk. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a reminder of time slipping away. I'd built my life for them, sacrificed dreams, nights, years, and this was their thanks. My fingers tightened on the letter, crumpling its edge. Anything else? I asked, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. Frank shrugged. Liam's desperate. Emma's pride is her leash. Use that. He tapped the envelope. You've got enough to rattle them. I nodded, slipping the papers into my folder. The weight of it grounded me, each document a brick in the wall I was building. Keep digging, I said, standing. I want everything. Back home, the house was too quiet, the study's dark with swallowing the light. I spread the papers across my desk, the clocks ticking louder now, like a heartbeat. Emma's letter lay open, her words a taunt. I grabbed a pen, jotting notes, Liam, debts. Emma, pride. My mind raced, piecing together a plan, though its shape was still vague. The documents were my first weapon, sharp and ready. I leaned back, the chair groaning. Margaret's photo watched from the desk, her eyes soft but unyielding. I'd been weak for too long, blinded by love for a son who traded me for cash. No more. I grabbed my phone, typing a message to Ron, it starting. My thumb hovered over the send button, then pressed down. A creak echoed from downstairs, sharp against the rain's drone. My heart lurched. The front door was locked, I'd checked. I stood, the folder still in hand, and moved toward the hall. The house felt alive, its shadows shifting. Someone was here, or I was losing my mind. Either way, I wasn't backing down. The cafe in Naperville buzzed with morning chatter, the scent of espresso cutting through the damp air. I sat in a corner booth, my laptop open, the screen's glow reflecting in my coffee. My watch ticked softly, a reminder of time bending to my will. The email was ready, an anonymous tip to Liam's creditors, listing his car, his condo, every asset he'd flaunted. My finger lingered over the send key, then pressed. Done. I leaned back, the vinyl seat creaking. Outside, rain streaked the windows, blurring the world. The documents from Frank sat in my bag, their weight a quiet victory. Liam and Emma thought they could bully me, but I'd learned their game. Now, I'd play mine. An hour later, I parked across from Liam's house, the street lined with manicured lawns and pretense. Their place was all white shutters and false charm, the grass patchy from neglect. I kept the engine off, my breath fogging the window. My phone buzzed, Ron, checking in. I ignored it, my eyes locked on their front door. It didn't take long. Liam burst out, phone pressed to his ear, his voice carrying through the cracked window. I'll pay, just give me time. His face was slick with sweat, his tie askew. Emma followed, her heels clicking, her voice sharp as a blade. You idiot. You said this was handled. A glass shattered inside, the sound crisp against the rain. Emma spun, her hair whipping as she stormed back in. Liam clutched his phone, pleading, I need a week, that's all. The door slammed, the echo like a crack in their armor. I smiled, my first real one in days. This was just the start. I scribbled notes in my book, Liam, panicking. Emma, cracking. Their unity was a lie, and I drive the wedge deeper. My watch ticked, steady, grounding. Margaret used to say time revealed truth. She was right. I started the car, the engine's hum blending with the rain, and drove back to Naperville. At home, the mailbox was stuffed, bills, junk, and one crisp envelope, its edges sharp. I tore it open, the paper cool against my fingers. A note from Liam, handwritten, formal, family meeting. Let's reconcile. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., our place. The clock in the hall ticked, its rhythm mocking the word reconcile. I set the letter on the kitchen counter, its words a trap I'd walk into willingly. I poured a whiskey, the glass heavy in my hand. The house was quiet, the rain a distant murmur. I'd stirred the hornet's nest, and they were buzzing. Good. I slipped the letter into my pocket and headed to the garage, the car keys cold against my palm. Tomorrow, I'd face them, but tonight, I needed to think. The engine roared, and I drove into the wet dusk, the road ahead sharp with possibility. The law firm's conference room smelled of ink and polished wood, its windows framing Chicago's rain-slicked towers. I sat at the table, my hands folded, the folder of documents tucked under my arm. The door creaked open, and Liam's lawyer strode in, a wiry man with a smirk that begged to be wiped off. He dropped a stack of papers, the sound sharp, like a gauntlet thrown. Mr. Crawford, he began, his voice oily, your son has concerns about your capacity to manage your estate. He leaned forward, eyes glinting. You're aging. Mistakes happen. I clenched my jaw, my fingers digging into the folder. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a pulse of restraint. My mind's sharper than your client's finances, I said, my voice low. The lawyer's smirk faltered, but he pressed on, rattling off accusations, mismanagement, neglect, all lies spun to steal what I'd built. The door creaked again, and a woman entered, her heels clicking with purpose. Elis Martin, my lawyer, carried herself like a storm held in check. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back, her eyes sharp as she set her briefcase down. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice cool, "your claims are as thin as this paper." She slid a document across the table, her watch glinting under the lights. The lawyer scoffed, but Elis didn't flinch. "You cite mismanagement, yet Mr. Crawford's accounts are impeccable. Care to explain this?" She tapped a spreadsheet, her nail clicking. "Or shall we discuss your client's debts instead?" I exhaled, a knot loosening in my chest. The lawyer stammered, flipping through his notes, his confidence crumbling. Elis leaned back, her smile faint but lethal. The clock ticked on, marking her rhythm, not his. I caught her eye, a silent thanks passing between us. After the meeting, we lingered in the hall, the air cooler, the city's hum distant. "They're desperate," Elis said, her tone lighter now. "I've seen worse opponents, James. We'll crush them." I chuckled, the sound foreign. "You're enjoying this?" "A little." She grinned. A spark in her eyes. "Justice has a nice ring to it." We walked to her office, a small space lined with books and framed degrees. She pulled a file, her fingers quick. "Their case is weak, but they're not done. Liam's impulsive, Emma's calculating. Watch your back." I nodded, the folder heavy in my hands. "I've got eyes open." She paused, her pen hovering over a page. "Wait. This," she circled a line, her brow furrowing, then looked up, a glint in her eye. "This changes everything." "What is it?" I leaned forward, my pulse spiking. She slid the document toward me, her voice low. "A loophole. Trust me, James, they won't see this coming." I took the file, its weight a promise. The rain had eased, sunlight breaking through the clouds. I left the firm, the city alive around me, and slid into my car. The engine purred, the road calling. Whatever Elis had found, it was my next move, and I was ready to play it. Rain drummed the roof of my Naperville house, a steady pulse that matched the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I stood in the living room, the air heavy with the scent of damp wood and old memories. Family photos lined the mantel, Margaret's smile a quiet rebuke. The doorbell chimed, sharp and unwelcome. I smoothed my shirt, steadied my breath, and opened the door. Emma stood there, her coat glistening, her smile as polished as her lies. "James," she said, her voice syrupy, "I came to apologize. We got carried away." Her eyes flicked past me, scanning the room like a thief casing a vault. I nodded, gesturing her inside. "Tea?" I asked, my tone neutral. My pulse quickened, but I kept my face calm. She followed, her heels clicking on the hardwood, each step a calculated note in her performance. I poured water into the kettle, the hiss of the burner filling the silence. The clock ticked on, relentless. Emma sat, crossing her legs, her purse perched like a shield. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said, leaning forward. "Liam stressed. You know how he gets." Her fingers brushed a lock of hair, a practiced move. But her eyes, cold, calculating, betrayed her. I'd seen that look before, in boardrooms, in deals gone sour. "Stressed," I echoed, setting a cup before her. My hand brushed a document on the table, a transfer of assets to a charity fund, signed that morning with Elis' guidance. Emma's gaze darted to it, her lips tightening for a split second. "Got you," I thought. "We all make mistakes," I said, my voice soft, inviting her to dig deeper. She sipped the tea, her nails clicking against the cup. "You've always been so generous," she said, her tone dipping into flattery. "Maybe we can start over. For family." The word hung, hollow. I remembered her letter, her venom scrawled in ink, "He's not eternal." My jaw clenched, but I smiled. "Family," I said, leaning back. "That's worth considering." My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Elis, all set. I ignored it, watching Emma. She prattled on, reminiscing about Liam's wedding, her voice a calculated lullaby. But she slipped, calling my estate our future. Her eyes widened, catching the mistake, but I let it pass, my smile unwavering. I stood, gathering the cups. "Let me walk you out," I said. She hesitated, then followed, her purse clutched tight. At the door, she paused, glancing back at the document on the table. "Think about what I said," she urged, her voice too sweet. I nodded, closing the door behind her. Through the window, I watched her linger by her car, her phone pressed to her ear, her whispers sharp against the rain. She thought she was hidden, but the glass betrayed her. My chest tightened, anger, triumph, caution. I pulled out my phone and dialed Elis. She took the bait, I said, my voice low. The clock ticked, marking the moment. I turned toward the study, the plan sharpening in my mind, each step a brick in the trap I was building. The air was crisp, the rain finally gone, leaving Naperville's streets slick and gleaming. I parked a block from Liam's house, the engine off, my watch ticking softly in the quiet. The neighborhood buzzed with morning routine, kids on bikes, a jogger with earbuds, but my eyes were locked on Liam's driveway. His prized convertible sat there, cherry red, a symbol of his borrowed swagger. Not for long. A tow truck rumbled up, its yellow lights flashing. Two men in coveralls stepped out, clipboards in hand. Liam's front door flew open, and he stumbled out, his shirt untucked, his face a mask of panic. "You can't take it," he shouted, waving his phone. "This is a mistake." The taller man shrugged, hooking the car to the tow. "Court order, buddy. Pay your debts." Neighbors peeked from windows, a woman across the street filming with her phone. Liam's voice cracked, pleading now. "Give me a week. I'll fix this." The door slammed again, and Emma stormed out, her face twisted. "You're pathetic," she hissed, her voice carrying. "You said you had this handled." Liam grabbed her arm, but she yanked free, her heels scraping the pavement. "You're embarrassing us," she spat, storming back inside. The door's thud echoed, a crack in their facade. I jotted a note in my book, Liam, breaking. Emma, furious. My pen moved fast, the ink a quiet victory. The tow truck pulled away, Liam's car dangling like a trophy. He sank to the curb, his head in his hands, the neighbors' whispers a chorus of his shame. I started my car, the engine's hum blending with my pulse. The clock on the dash ticked, steady, grounding. I'd lit the fuse, and their world was burning. By noon, I was in Elis' office, the air sharp with coffee and paper. She leaned over her desk, her glasses perched low, a stack of documents between us. "They're unraveling," she said, her voice calm but edged with excitement. "Liam's creditors are circling. Emma's losing her grip." I nodded, my fingers tracing the edge of a file. "Saw it myself. He's a mess. She's worse." The memory of Liam's defeat, Emma's rage, warmed me like whiskey. But I stayed sharp. "What's next?" Elis slid a page toward me, her watch glinting. "We tighten the screws. The meeting tomorrow, they'll push hard. We'll push harder." Her smile was a blade, and I trusted its edge. We reviewed the plan, her pen marking key points, each stroke a step toward justice. I left her office, the city alive around me, and pulled out my phone. The number was already queued. "It's time," I said when the call connected. "Be ready." The voice on the other end was steady, a promise sealed. I hung up, the folder under my arm heavy with purpose. The car door clicked shut, and I drove toward home, the meeting looming like a storm on the horizon. The cafe in downtown Chicago hummed with clinking cups and murmured deals, the scent of croissants mingling with espresso. I sat by the window, my tablet glowing with social media posts, each one a dagger in Emma's carefully curated world. Emma Crawford lied about her charity work, one read, with screenshots of her emails, Frank's find, leaked by Elis contacts. Comments piled up, vicious and gleeful. I sipped my coffee, its bitterness a perfect match for the moment. The clock on the wall ticked, steady, counting down Emma's reign. I scrolled, my thumb deliberate. Another post, is Emma Crawford's lifestyle funded by fraud? The evidence was thin but damning, enough to sting her pride, her obsession with status. I pictured her now, in their pretentious house, her face crumpling as her facade shattered. My watch ticked, a quiet echo of control. Across town, Emma sat in her living room, the curtains drawn, magazines scattered like fallen soldiers. Her phone glowed, the screen a flood of notifications. She swiped, her fingers trembling, mascara streaking her cheeks. How did they find this? She whispered, her voice breaking. She hurled the phone at the couch, its thud swallowed by the silence. Liam slouched in a chair, his eyes dull. Fix it, she snapped. Do something. He didn't move, his voice flat. What's the point? You're the one who pushed. Emma's face twisted, her nails digging into her palms. This is your fault, she screamed, storming to the window. She grabbed her phone, dialing her lawyer, her voice low, venomous. Find out who did this. Now. I didn't need to see her to know the chaos. The posts told the story, each like a pebble in an avalanche. I set the tablet down, the cafe's warmth a contrast to the cold satisfaction in my chest. My phone buzzed, Elis. She's spiraling, she said when I answered. The leak worked. She's weaker than we thought. Good, I said, my voice steady. What's our move? Keep the pressure on, Elis replied. The meeting's tomorrow. She'll come out swinging, but we're ready. Her confidence was a lifeline, and I clung to it. We hung up, and I leaned back, the coffee cooling in my hand. The clock ticked, its rhythm a promise of what was coming. The cafe door chimed, and a courier stepped in, a slim folder in hand. James Crawford, he asked. I nodded, taking the delivery. The paper was crisp, the contents heavy, documents for the meeting, prepared by Elis, each page a weapon. I opened the folder, my eyes scanning the first line, a slow smile spreading. The cafe's noise faded, the world narrowing to the plan in my hands. I stood, the folder under my arm, and pushed through the door, the city's pulse matching mine as I headed to the car. The conference room in downtown Chicago gleamed with polished wood and glass, its air sharp with the scent of ink and ambition. I stepped inside, my folder of documents a reassuring weight under my arm. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a drumbeat of anticipation. Liam and Emma sat across the table, flanked by their lawyers, their faces a mix of smugness and strain. Papers were spread before them, a new will, its edges crisp, waiting for my signature. I took my seat, my pulse steady, my smile faint. Mr. Crawford, the lead lawyer began, his voice smooth as oil, this document ensures your family's future. Sign it, and we're done. He slid the will toward me, his pen glinting like a blade. Emma's eyes flicked to mine, her lips tight, while Liam shifted, his fingers drumming the table. I picked up the pen, turning it in my hand. The room held its breath, the clocks ticking louder now. Funny, I said, my voice calm, I brought a guest. The lawyers frowned, exchanging glances. Emma's hand froze on her purse. Liam's drumming stopped. The door creaked open, and a man in a gray suit entered, his briefcase heavy, his expression carved from stone. Agent Daniel Harper, FBI, he said, his voice cutting the air. We have evidence of document forgery tied to Liam and Emma Crawford. He dropped a stack of papers on the table, the thud echoing like a gavel. Forged signatures, altered contracts, Frank's digging, Elis strategy, my plan. Emma gasped, her face draining of color. Liam's chair scraped as he leaned back, his eyes wide. This is a mistake, he stammered, his voice cracking. The lawyers scrambled, flipping through the evidence, their confidence crumbling. Harper's gaze was unrelenting. "These are felonies," he said. "You'll answer for them." I leaned back, the folder untouched before me. The clock ticked, marking their defeat. Emma's nails dug into her purse, her composure shattered. Liam's hands shook, his bravado gone. "Dad," he croaked, "I didn't mean it." "Tell them." I met his eyes, my voice cold. "You meant every word." The room felt smaller, the air thick with their panic. The lawyers whispered frantically, but Harper's presence silenced them. I stood, the folder in hand, and nodded to Harper. "Thank you, Agent." Liam lurched forward, his voice desperate. "Dad, please. Give me a chance." Emma clutched the table, silent, her eyes burning with fear and rage. I paused at the door, the handle cool under my palm. Their pleas followed me, but I didn't look back. The door clicked shut, the sound final. I walked to my car, the city's hum a distant pulse, the folder a trophy of justice. The road home stretched ahead, and I drove, my mind already turning to what came next. The living room glowed with soft lamplight, the scent of roasted chicken lingering from dinner. The grandfather clock ticked gently, a steady rhythm against the quiet. I stood by the window, my reflection faint in the glass, when the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Liam and Emma stood on the porch, their faces haggard, their clothes rumpled. The weight of their defeat hung like a shadow. "Dad," Liam said, his voice breaking, "we're sorry. We messed up." He stepped forward, his hands trembling. Emma nodded, her eyes red, her usual poise gone. "We lost everything," she whispered. "Please, James." I crossed my arms, the doorframe cool against my shoulder. "You chose greed," I said, my voice even. "You chose to betray me." The words landed like stones, and Liam flinched, his knees buckling. He sank to the porch, his head in his hands. "You're my father," he choked. "Give us a chance." Emma's gaze darted to mine, pleading, but I saw the calculation beneath her tears. I shook my head. "You made your path. Walk it." I stepped back, the clocks ticking louder now, a reminder of time's judgment. Liam's sobs echoed, but I closed the door, the click final. In the study, I sat at my desk, a stack of documents before me, transfers to a children's charity, signed that morning with Elis' counsel. My pen moved steadily, each signature a release from the past. Margaret's photo watched from the shelf, her smile warm, approving. I'd kept enough to live comfortably, but the rest would build futures for others, not fuel Liam's folly. The doorbell rang again, softer this time. Elis stood there, her coat dusted with evening mist, a bottle of wine in hand. "Thought you could use company," she said, her grin easing the ache in my chest. We ate in the dining room, the clink of glasses a quiet celebration. "You did the right thing," she said, her eyes steady. "They'll survive. You'll thrive." I chuckled, the sound lighter than I'd expected. "Thanks to you." We talked late, her laughter a balm, her strength a mirror to my own. The clock chimed midnight, and she left, her headlights fading into the night. I stepped onto the porch, the air cool, the sunset painting the sky in oranges and pinks. The weight of years, love, loss, betrayal, lifted, leaving only peace. I turned back inside, the study calling. A blank sheet of paper waited on the desk, its promise vast. I picked up my pen, the clock's soft ticking urging me forward, and began to write. The charity office in Chicago buzzed with purpose, its walls lined with children's drawings and thank you notes. I sat at a table with volunteers, the scent of fresh paper and coffee grounding me. A young woman across from me beamed, holding up a plan for a new after-school program. "Your donation's changing lives, Mr. Crawford," she said, her voice bright. I nodded, warmth spreading in my chest. The office door creaked open, a volunteer stepping in, and for a moment, I heard the echo of older doors, ones I'd closed for good. My phone buzzed, a news alert: Liam and Emma Crawford face fraud charges. I pictured them in the courtroom, their faces pale, their hands clasped tight. The judge's voice, cold and final, would seal their fate: fines, maybe jail. I felt no anger, only a quiet resolve. They'd built their ruin, brick by brick. I swiped the alert away, the volunteers' chatter pulling me back. Later, I walked with Elis along Lake Michigan, the water glinting under the spring sun. Her scarf fluttered, her laughter sharp as she recounted a case she'd won. "You're tougher than you look, Jim," she said, nudging my arm. "Always were." "Learn from the best," I replied, her grin infectious. We stopped at a bench, the city's skyline sharp against the sky. I pulled Margaret's photo from my wallet, its edges worn. "She'd be proud," I said, my voice soft. "Of this. Of us." Elis' hand rested on my shoulder, steady, warm. Back home, the study was quiet, the clocks ticking a gentle pulse. I sat at my desk, a blank sheet before me, my pen heavy with purpose. The words came slowly, each one a thread in the legacy I wanted to leave, not wealth, but truth. "Justice is strength," I wrote. "Hold it close, and it will carry you." The letter was for those who'd come after, a guide through greed's shadows. Margaret's photo watched, her eyes kind, urging me on. I sealed the letter, its weight a promise kept. The trial's outcome reached me later, guilty verdicts, their lives unraveled. I set the phone down, the news a distant ripple. The porch called, the night sky vast, stars pricking the dark. I stepped outside, the air cool, the world still. The clock inside ticked softly, its rhythm a heartbeat of peace. I looked up, the stars a map of futures unwritten, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.